Underdog is the leading place to make all your sports picks, and you can play now in your state. Millions of fans have already won billions making picks on Underdog, and it's easy. All you have to do is download the app and choose whether a player will go higher or lower on one of their stats. You can choose strikeouts, total bases, or home runs, or go higher or lower on three-pointers or rebounds. You can play with as little as $1. If you get everything right, you could win up to 1,000 times your money. This week, I'm looking at baseball, and as usual, Aaron Judge is my choice to go higher on the stats that involve his hitting. Download the Underdog app or go to UnderdogFantasy.com and sign up with promo code GARAGE to unlock a special offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you make your first deposit. That's promo code GARAGE. Must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncp.gambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP 53342. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY.
It's story time. Time to tell stories. That's really what this show is all about. The story of you, the story of me, the story of us, the story of life. My name's Mischke. Yes, it's story time once more on the old podcast. Life itself is a story, is it not? Let's make some magic! All right. A local librarian in my town was going about her day recently when a man came in to return an overdue vinyl record nearly 50 years late. He was an 8th grader back in '76 when he checked out Cat Stevens' greatest hits on a vinyl record. Just recently, he brought back that very record, asking how much he owed in overdue fees. The record was checked out 3 years before I was born, said the librarian. It's the oldest return I've ever come across. The guy returning it said, "It's been in my record collection for 50 years. I listened to it one more time this morning before bringing it in. I'm willing to pay whatever the fine is." Well, unbeknownst to this fella, the library terminated its late fees a couple years ago. Before this change, people were charged 30 cents for each day an item was past due. This would have set the guy back over $5,000. The librarian told the guy the library doesn't even offer vinyl records anymore. But the guy returning it said he's relieved to have brought it back nonetheless. It had been weighing on his conscience for some time. He's happy to put all this behind him now, he says. That weight on his conscience was probably felt for the first time sometime within that first year of not bringing it back. By the 5th year, it must have really been annoying. 15 years in, I bet he was feeling small, might have even felt like a dirty little thief. By year 25, his shame was probably overwhelming. 40 years in, he was curled up in the fetal position in a corner of his music room beneath his stereo, weeping like a little child. Then this past week, he stood up, grew up, grabbed his album, knowing it might cost him his $5,000 life savings, but also knowing it was the right thing to do. That's called maturity, people. That happens over time. If you can live long enough, maturity happens. Now, here's what's interesting to me. I don't know how many of you remember the days of checking out items from the library. Some of you may still check things out regularly. But what you would be told if you wanted to check out something that was already checked out was that you could be put on a waiting list if you'd like, and you would be the next one to get the item once it was returned. Well, in this particular case, apparently some guy started waiting outside the local library expecting that Cat Stevens album to be returned. And I mean, he started waiting decades ago. Yeah, just after that Cat Stevens album was checked out in 1976, another fella began to hang out at the library waiting for it to be returned. He eventually quit asking at the desk and just started waiting out by the curb, wondering when the devil that album was coming back. And the story goes, he was waiting patiently for half a century when our man finally returned this Cat Stevens album this past week. The people in the area, in the neighborhood where this library is, had given this very patient fella the nickname Curb Guy. They called him Curb Guy because he would just sit there on that curb near the front door of the library waiting for that Cat Stevens album to come back. He'd wait and he'd wait and he'd wait all day. While the library was open, he'd be on the curb waiting. And then he'd go home empty-handed at night, only to return and wait at the curb once again the next morning. The librarians would tell him, "Hey, we'll call you when the album is returned." But the guy didn't trust that. He feared someone might slip in and check out the album ahead of him, so he waited. He waited so patiently, day in and day out. I mean, if he wasn't the very definition of patient. Curb Guy. That's all the locals thought to call him, Curb Guy. Like some gargoyle attached to an ancient structure. He became like an appendage of that library facade. He had a real name, but few bothered to ask him what it was. He had a story, too, but few stopped to hear it. Fact is, he just really loved the Cat Man. He loved Cat Stevens, and that album was Cat's greatest hits. All of Curb Guy's favorite songs were on that one album, free to listen to with a simple library card, and he owned a library card. He remembered the day he first got the library card back in the mid-'70s. Getting that card and getting his first bank account were the two biggest days of his life back then. But nothing brought him joy like listening to the Cat. And the idea that Cat Stevens had a greatest hits album available just filled Curb Guy with expectant wonder. What would it be like to hear all those songs one after another in one sitting? He had even purchased a beanbag chair back then for the occasion, got it cheap at a garage sale, and he had borrowed his friend's headphones, those big clunky headphones that covered both ears. He was ready that day that he went to the library to get that album. He was ready. But someone beat him to it by a couple hours. Damn it. That's okay, he thought. He'd put his name down so he could get it right away when the album was returned, probably within a couple of weeks. He was first on the list, so he waited. And he waited. And he waited. And he waited. And he thought about this Wild World. Wild World was track number 1 on that album. And a wild world it was, he thought. Curb Guy was young then, very young. And Oh Very Young was track number 2 on that album. Oh, very young, what will you leave us this time? Cat sang. You're only dancing on this earth for a short while. And though your dreams may toss and turn you now, they will vanish away like your dad's best jeans, denim blue, fading up to the sky. Oh, very young, what will you leave us this time? There will never be a better chance to change your mind. And if you want this world to see a better day, will you carry the words of love with you? Curb Guy just got fueled by such thoughts. They made him want that album all the more. But the days were passing by, and the album wasn't coming back. It was not being returned. He was just bursting with desire to listen to these songs. He practically sang them out loud as he waited. He could barely contain himself. I can't keep it in. I can't keep it in. I've got to let it out. I've got to show all the world. World's got to see all the love that's in me. He was singing track number 3 on that album. People were staring at him as he did, but he didn't care. I can't keep it in. I can't hide it, and I can't lock it away. I'm up for love. Love heats my blood. Blood spins my head, and my head falls in love. Where the hell was that album? He screamed. When's it coming back? Again, the people in the neighborhood just stared. Look at Curb Guy, Martha. He's been there for many months, but the devil's with him. Maybe he's one of these guys recently let out of these mental health facilities. Probably lives in a halfway house down the road there. Curb Guy could tell people were talking about him. He knew they were looking down on him. All the fine folk going through their day, all looking so important. He'd think to himself, yeah, I know a lot of fancy dancers. Move so smooth, but they have no answers. Yeah, Curb Guy was quoting from track number 4 on Cat Stevens' Greatest Hits, the album that didn't seem like it was ever coming back. He got tired of the stares from people. He longed to escape that. So he started to come to the library at night instead, just to avoid people. At night, no one was around, and he could just breathe, free of all judgment. And he could peer into the windows of the library. He could see the return cart with the items that had come back that day. He could squint and ascertain if Cat Stevens' Greatest Hits was among the returns. But again, he would never spot it. And he'd walk home late, followed by a moon shadow. He'd be leaping and hopping on a moon shadow, and he'd say to it, "Did it take long to find me?" That's what he'd ask the faithful light. "Did it take long to find me? And are you going to stay the night?" Sometimes he'd walk all night aimlessly, wondering why on earth that album was never returned. He'd wander the empty streets, looking into houses, wondering if that might be the house there where the person lives who has that Cat Stevens' Greatest Hits album. And before he knew it, morning had broken, just like the first morning. And he said, "Mine is the sunlight, mine is the morning, born of the one light Eden saw play." And with elation for this new day, he'd return to the library thinking, this could be the day. This could be the day the album comes back. But it wasn't the day. And over the many, many months, and ultimately years, he grew lonely and despondent. Back at his home, you could find him in his bedroom, saying, "Another Saturday night, and I ain't got nobody. How I wish I had someone to talk to. I'm sure in an awful way. I ain't got my music, and I ain't got my album. What is with that bastard who checked it out? How many times can he listen to it before he gets sick of it? He has to be sick of it by now." Then one day, seeing Curb Man sitting all alone, this older gentleman took pity on him and sat beside him. And Curb Guy talked to this old fella. He said, "Maybe I'm doing this all wrong. Maybe I'm wasting my life just sitting here, expecting a miracle." And the old fella said, "It's not time to make a change. Just relax. Take it easy. You're still young. That's your fault. There's so much you have to go through." And Curb Guy, he looked at the old fella as if he were looking at Cat Stevens himself. "You sound like the Cat Man," Curb Guy said. "Where do you come from anyway?" And the old man said he had just arrived on the peace train, found it out there on the edge of darkness. And then the old man said, "We're two fine people, you and I." And Curb Guy said, "That's from Cat Stevens' greatest hits, 'Two Fine People.'" And the old man laughed, and Curb Guy laughed. And the old man said, "You know, I've been happy lately, thinking about the good times to come, and I believe it could be that something good has begun." And that filled Curb Guy with hope. Did this old man mean his album was maybe on its way back, finally, to the library? Maybe it was finally time for his dream to be realized? Is that what he was being told? He pictured it all in his head. Pictured himself sitting on his big beanbag chair in his bedroom, big headphones on, Cat Stevens' greatest hits cranked up high, an afternoon of reverie. This old man had suddenly put the wind back in his sails. "Oh, I'm on my way, I know I am," sang Curb Guy, "somewhere not so far from here." Yeah, he sang Cat's well-known hit and bounded up the stairs of the library and asked if the greatest hits album had finally been returned. But it had not. And more years went by. Not just years, decades went by. Decades. And Curb Guy quit believing, quit caring, quit dreaming. He returned to the curb each and every day only because it had become all he knew how to do. He'd watch leaves get washed into the sewer when it rained. He'd watch the cars struggle down the road when it snowed. He saw the springs and he saw the autumns, and he felt time aging his weary body. He stopped loving life, and he stopped having faith. Until one fine spring day in 2025, when an old guy with an album under his arm walked up to the library doors. And Curb Guy looked, and Curb Guy spotted that album, that familiar color, that familiar image, and he said, "No. Can it be? Am I hallucinating?" He had been a 15-year-old kid when he started waiting for that album to be returned. And he was now a 64-year-old man. And that fella returning the album had been a 13-year-old kid when he checked it out, and now he was a 62-year-old man. Two old men coming together. Finally. Curb Guy stood up and looked at the gray-haired fellow with the album under his arm. "Is that Cat Stevens' greatest hits, mister?" And the guy with the album under his arm said, "Yeah, I'm returning it. It's a bit late." "I've been waiting for you," Curb Guy said. "Been waiting for you a long time." "Yeah, sorry. I really dig this album, and it was just hard for me to give up." And Curb Guy said, "Yeah, I like the album as well, and it's been tough for me not to listen to it." And the man with the album under his arm said, "Well, walk into the library with me, and I'll pay the fine, and you can take it from here. I'm sure they'll loan it out to you. There are no skips or anything on it. Still sounds good. I gave it one last listen just this morning." Curb Guy still felt he was in the haze of a dream, but he followed the guy into the library. The librarian ended up telling Curb Guy the library really doesn't lend out vinyl albums anymore. They don't own any. But since this one was returned and is here right now, she said he could take it out for a couple weeks if he wanted to. The man returning it was told he would not be charged any fine, as the library had given up that practice. That guy was ecstatic. Boy, did he pick the right time to return it. And Curb Guy was ecstatic. He learned he wasn't dreaming. His album had indeed been returned, finally, and the two of them walked out of the library together. Curb Guy singing at the top of his lungs the lyrics of Cat Stevens' song Ready from his greatest hits album. I thank the Lord you came along this way. It's no more an illusion, and I can say, I love, I'm ready to love, yeah. I love, I'm ready, ready to love. Curb Guy's faith was back. All the people in the neighborhood could hear him walking away from the library. Hey, there goes Curb Guy. He's leaving the curb. Look, he's got his album. He's singing to himself all the way home. It was a beautiful day, man. Curb Guy would later say he had never seen a sky that particular shade of blue. It was a blue a lot like that album cover. I wish I could have been with Curb Guy next to his beanbag chair as he listened. I bet he wept. Just another story from my hometown, folks. Just another story.
Different story.
When you're thinking about going to an attorney with a personal injury case, a common thought is, am I going to have to go to trial? Yeah, the thought of that can be a bit overwhelming to some people. But here's the good news. The majority of personal injury claims are settled out of court. Both parties agree on a compensation amount without needing a judge or a jury to decide. Settling is quicker, it's less stressful, it keeps your personal matters private, and the law firm of Bradshaw and Bryant get justice for the injured routinely without any trial at all because they're that good. The other party knows it'll be in their best interest to settle rather than go up against Bradshaw and Bryant. Would you take on Batman and Robin? I would not. Bradshaw and Bryant. Find them at minnesotapersonalinjury.com. Understanding money, understanding investment, understanding the times we're in, understanding your concerns, your wishes, your hopes for your savings, your hopes for your retirement. Josh Arnold understands. He has for decades. That's why so many people seek him out and have for 40 years. You're probably saying, oh, I don't know, Mischke, I'm not certain which way to go here. I don't know really who to trust with my retirement savings. I get it. That's why I would call Josh Arnold and take him up on his free 48-minute consultation. Hang up afterwards, you're out nothing. 952-925-5608. Rewind this, listen again if you missed the number, but call him and tell him I sent you.
Investment services offered by Josh Arnold Investment Consultant, LLC, a security and investment advisor. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. All investments involve risk. Tommy Mischke is a paid endorser.
Are you guys familiar with Dan Harris at all? At one point, it was a fairly well-known story because of what happened to him on the air during a national broadcast. You can go online and hear him tell it.
We are going to turn to a story we're calling 10% Happier. I found a way to make myself happier, and it could probably work for you, too. I stumbled upon this whole thing as a result of a bizarre, unplanned odyssey, and it all started with the most embarrassing day of my life.
From ABC News, this is Good Morning America.
And the reason this is the most embarrassing day of my life is that I am about to freak out on national television. One of the world's most commonly prescribed medications may be providing a big bonus. Researchers report people who take cholesterol-lowering drugs called statins for at least 5 years may also lower their risk for cancer, but it's too early to prescribe statins slowly for cancer production. I knew that I had just had a panic attack. That realization became a turning point. Eventually, I would find the antidote, something that would, to quote the title of a new book I've written, make me 10% happier. Up next, what I found at the end of my long, strange journey. It's the secret to success for everyone from executives to pro athletes, even Marines. It's been shown to rewire your brain for happiness. How I got there and how you can too when Nightline continues. Welcome back. Not long ago, I found myself on a strange, unplanned journey. It started with an on-air panic attack and led to interviews with a gaggle of gurus, none of whom could give me any practical, actionable advice, until finally I stumbled upon the last thing I ever would have expected: meditation. I always assumed meditation was for people who like crystals, incense, and John Tesh music. I like to say meditation has made me roughly 10% happier. If it could work for a fidgety, skeptical newsman, maybe you too should give it a shot.
Yeah, so his thing is getting everyone to be 10% happier. That's his big pitch. He's got a book about being 10% happier, videos about being 10% happier. Is it just me, or does this sound like a weak selling point? I can make you 10% happier. I've always been bothered by that every time I hear about Dan Harris and his claim that he can help you get 10% happier. In my 30s and 40s, I dealt with clinical depression. Had I sat in a therapist's office and heard, "I can get you 10% happier, Tommy boy," I'd have fired that therapist. Give me someone who knows what they're doing. Hello? I need a therapist who can do better than 10%. 10% is what Dan's pitching. He says he has studied all the gurus, he's read the self-help books, he's looked at the different therapies, the treatments, the offerings, the advice, the insights of the world's great thinkers. And on a scale of 1 to 10, if I have bottomed out in the happiness department, I could read Dan's book, listen to Dan's podcast, take in his videos, and get my happiness level up to a 1. A 1. That's it. That's what he's pitching. He studied all the gurus, he studied the self-help books, and he decided that really what's most effective is meditation, and it can take you on a scale of 1 to 10 from a 0 happiness level to a 1. Dan, I could do that for myself with 1 glass of beer. 1 glass of beer would take me to a 1. Give me a sunset with that beer, I could get up to a 2. There's research that says just filling out a small piece of paper with what you're grateful for each day, just writing out what you're grateful for at the end of every day, they say that adds a couple of points all by itself. Well, now we're up to 4. Dan, we haven't used anything you're offering, and we're up to a 4. If I opened up a restaurant and pitched the idea that you could eat at my restaurant and feel 10% satisfied with your meal and leave only 90% shy of full, I think I'd struggle for business. If the doc says to me at the emergency room, "I can reduce that pain, fella. Take this. Within an hour, you'll be at a 9 on the pain scale instead of a 10. Is there another emergency room in this city I could possibly visit? I'm screaming at a 10 level. I think I'm still screaming at a 9 level, Doc. You're not going to be on my gratitude list." The happiness game. The happiness game. No offense to Dan. I'm sure he has insights. I really am sure. He seems like a sincere guy, but I would just go talk to an old lady. Between you, me, and the fence post, generally you can find some old lady in your neighborhood who can boost your happiness a little higher than 10%. I wish these old ladies would write this stuff down. I mean, they've got the makings for a little pamphlet they could hand out to get you quite a bit happier than you are. Maybe we just got to find one and pay her. Just scribble it down for me, ma'am. You know about happiness. You've lived a long life. Look at those eyes. You're wise. I can tell you know. You have insights. Scribble something down there. I'll hand it out to people. People who aren't happy with their 10% after the Dan Harris experience. I'll give them your pamphlet. The Old Lady's Guide to Happiness. Words of wisdom from one old gal. Here you go. Oh, you have it already? Let's see what she wrote. Her name's Greta. Here's the start of her little pamphlet. She writes, "I'm an old lady. You probably see me every now and again, bent over, walking down a quiet sidewalk in your neighborhood. I'm always alone, but that's okay. My husband died years ago, and a lot of my friends have passed on as well. Being alone is not so bad. That's the way it goes. I used to be young, like some of you. One day you will be old, just like me. That's also the way it goes. You have to go with the way it goes. The dumbest thing I've ever seen is people thinking they can go a different way than the way it goes." Anyway, why am I writing this? Some guy asked me to. Said his name was Mischke. I said I'd tackle it after my crossword was finished, and that's right now. Mischke asked me why I seem so happy. I started to tell him, and he said, "No, don't say it, write it." He said he was sure I could beat the 10% offering of Dan Harris, whoever that is. He said I could get you folks 12%, maybe 13 or 14% happier. Well, if that's all I'm going to do, I might as well go back to my crossword. I think just the cookies I bake could get you up to 15% happier. Anyway, he wanted to know what I do to be happy. In the morning, I wake up and I say, "You're kidding me. Another day? How perfectly delightful and unexpected." Then I have breakfast and I look out the window into my backyard and I watch a cardinal on a tree branch near my garage. You know what I say to that cardinal? I say, "Looky there, cardinal, I have my own garage." And I think about what a neat thing a garage is. Some people don't have garages, but I have one, and that makes me happy because I feel lucky. And people who feel lucky often feel happy. Anyway, sitting in my kitchen there, I pretend the cardinal and I are best friends. I tell him about my day, and he makes a noise that gets me thinking he's telling me about his day. And I'll sometimes squeal with laughter at the thought that he and I just conversed. Think about just that alone. If you only came to Earth to have one conversation with one bird, it would be worth it, would it not? What would you pay to come to Earth on one day and have one good conversation with one pretty bird? Personally, I think that could be worth one's life savings. Cash, not this Venmo thing I hear the kids talk about. Anyway, after I tell myself a bird and I have conversed, I go sit in the living room and I read a book. This is important. When I get lost in a book, I'm somewhere else, somewhere far away. I have been all over this world in my reading, and I have met the most extraordinary people, and I have lived with them, moved with them through their lives, all in the books I've read. Lord, has that been a wonderful experience. Books are better than airplanes, better than rocket ships, better than any form of travel ever invented. Often, right after reading a book, I take a walk in my neighborhood. And you know what? The whole world looks different just because of what I've read. Everything has changed. Every house, every person, every tree looks a little different because that book has altered me somehow, altered my perspective, at least for a time. And when that happens, I realize then and there that everything I see, everything, is not what it is so much as how I see it. And that everything changes the second I see it differently. And I come to see how ephemeral it all is, all of it, including me. It all morphs with perception changes. I don't seem at all like I seemed years ago. I wasn't an old lady back then, and I am now. And soon I'll be done, and a wispy, pale thing buried in the earth. So I start to hold on to things more lightly. I don't hug anything too tightly. I think this is important for someone seeking happiness. I touch everything as if it's a passing feather in the wind. I marvel at it. I let it move across my fingertips, and I let it drift away. And I smile that I got to have that. That's what getting old teaches you, to be ready to move on, always. Anyway, after my walk, I go to the church on the corner, 4 blocks away, and I help them with the noon lunch they offer to the homeless or to folks who have a home but are too broke to pay for a decent meal for themselves or their children. So many things get taken care of during this stretch right here. First of all, I suddenly have some real purpose. I'm making myself useful, and that right away gets my head in the proper place. And then, of course, people who are in need are having that need met, and something that's wrong is being righted, at least somewhat. But the young visitors to that church who say, "Oh, it also must feel good just to help others," they have it all wrong. I always have to stop them right there. I say to them, "You're talking about the help juice. I quit yearning for the help juice years ago. That little shot of juice you get when you tell yourself you're helping people. That juice is a feel-good juice that comes from you saying to yourself, 'Aren't I good? Aren't I compassionate? Aren't I helpful and kind? Look at me, world. I'm to be admired a little, aren't I? Hey, God, are you looking at me? See what I'm doing right now?' Oh, I lived on that juice as a younger woman. I really did. Then I got old and came to see the silliness of it all. I don't even like the word helping. It's a terrible word. Don't use it. The word I like is serving. Serving. Helping implies that I have something you don't, and I'm going to offer that to you. That puts me up here and you down there. Serving creates the opposite orientation. Now I'm down here and you're up there. You are allowing me to serve you, and in so doing, you are giving me purpose, and you are allowing me to feel our connectedness. And that's putting the universe the way it should be. And I am grateful to you for that. I thank you for that. When I come home later in the afternoon from serving at that lunch line, I usually take a nap. There is no feeling quite as delicious as climbing into bed with the sun still shining outside and feeling like I'm playing hooky from the world. Better yet, climbing into bed when it's raining. I drift off into a magnificent slumber, and I wake up to that late afternoon light, feeling renewed. And that's when I take my second walk. It's just a short one. Usually I pass the kids in the neighborhood, home from school, and I smile at them and I wave. Sometimes I stop to look at their parents' flowers, and some of the folks coming home from work stop to talk to me for a little bit. After my walk, I head home, and I'll eat a little supper, something small. I can't say that's all that pleasurable. At this point, I'm feeling my aloneness, and I feel a little longing for company. But then I say to myself, there ought to be a part of the day that falls somewhat short of nirvana. It's the contrast that a person needs in order to know the joy of the other parts of the day. So I actually find myself grateful for a little despondency. Helps me see that I'm alive, that I'm human, that I'm here, experiencing what so many others experience. We're all very much alike. I do take some comfort in that. that we're sharing much of this. In the early evening, I read once more before falling asleep, but I also pray. I got in the habit of that years ago. I'm no longer certain of who or what I'm praying to, whatever's out there, I guess, whoever's listening. But regardless, it gives me peace. It settles me into my place in the greater universe. It ends the day with me looking outward instead of inward. I looked inward so often over the years. I used to spend most of my weeks looking inward. Oh, eventually it became so obvious to me that introspection has its limitations and its pathologies. As that fella, the Dalai Lama, said so simply many years ago, you want to be unhappy, you think about yourself. You want to be happy, think about someone else. Bingo. Anyway, I fall asleep about 9 or 9:30 in the evening, and I hope for sweet dreams. I'm old now, so I don't assume I'll wake in the morning, but if I do, I'm once again delighted and always thankful, and I start the day all over again. Like most old folks I have known, I hope to pass away in my sleep sometime. It seems civilized, doesn't it? Anyone who ever died in their sleep is even luckier than those who get to own their own garage. Though both are lucky, don't get me wrong. I'm also lucky that I can still read, and that I think birds talk to me, and that a nap feels like a Christmas morning gift to a 5-year-old. I'm lucky I don't have many bad memories that haunt me. I have bad memories, but they don't haunt me. I learned a while ago that a bad memory is just a thing, no more alive than a shoehorn or an ashtray, so I tend to ignore them. I guess if I'm really going to follow Mischke's directive and pass along the key to happiness, well, think negation, not addition. It's not about adding things to your world, it's about removing them. The wild little secret, folks, and this is important, is that happiness is actually our natural state. We're born happy. If that gets obscured and filtered, it's because of what's been thrown on top of it. We have to start removing, not adding. Under all that crap is our happiness, still waiting from when we were a kid. It never leaves us. It just gets dumped on. That's really it, folks. That's all I have to say. That's why this is not a book. It's a little brochure. Now it's time for my walk. Remember, don't worry so much. It's a waste of time. What's coming is coming, and what isn't, isn't. Okay. All right. Well, there's the old lady's brochure. You can go with that, or you can go with Dan Harris's approach. I just wanted you to have some options. And on that note, we'll take our second break and be back on the other side. EcoFun Motorsports. I don't think you're going to run into another business with that name. Acme? A lot of businesses with Acme in the name. EcoFun Motorsports? I think they're going to be the only ones on planet Earth to go with that name. The part of it I like is the fun part, and that's really what they offer. You go into EcoFun Motorsports in Forest Lake, and there's just fun in all directions. Fun on wheels. A youth ATV, a youth dirt bike, Kawasaki and Yamaha motorcycles, side-by-sides for going off-road, e-bikes, as in electric bikes, for heading out and enjoying yourself on a beautiful summer day, scooters, Vespas, everywhere you look, there's just fun. Did anyone on their deathbed ever say, the thing I'm really sorry about is having had so much fun? Go have fun. Life is short. It's waiting for you at EcoFun Motorsports. Forest Lake. I heard an ad today where they said, "Our friendly, knowledgeable staff is here to help." And I thought to myself, how many times have I heard that line over the years? Our friendly, knowledgeable staff is here to help. At Spectacle Shop, some cool, hip, interesting, insightful people with a sense of humor and a real desire to make you look better and see better will be by your side. They're smart as can be, and you will like them. They do something different at Spectacle Shop. They have you make an appointment because now you have the full attention of their optician magicians as they learn all about what you use glasses for: work, play, study, computer, sports. They'll help you get exactly what you need for the kind of life you have. And they have eyewear no one else has. That's the reason they keep winning Best Eyewear Shop in Minnesota in every media poll. Go to Spectacle Shop, 4 Twin Cities locations. Glad to have you on board, everyone. I don't think I've ever introduced Wally to you, the fella on the other side of the thermopane glass here. Wally, say hello.
Time to pull back the curtain, huh? Well, folks, I'm Wally, your trusty board operator and the guy behind the scenes, keeping things running smoothly. Keep your hands off the buttons. That's my job.
I like a man who knows his domain.
Thanks, Mischke. You focus on making the magic happen on the mic, and I'll handle the rest. Let's make this podcast one for the books.
One for the books. I like you, Wally.
I like you too, Mischke.
Would you ever like to go have a beer, Wally?
A cold beer sounds like the perfect way to unwind. We could grab a spot by the river and just chat about life. You in?
Count me in, indeed. Why don't you tell these people a little bit about your background?
Well, folks, I've been behind the scenes for a long time, making sure everything runs like clockwork. I've had my hands on all sorts of controls, from radio boards to audio tech. I know the ins and outs of what makes good sound, and I'm here to make sure it's all smooth for Mischke to work his magic. You won't hear me much, but trust me, I'm always there, making sure the show stays on track and that the tech side is rock solid. So no worries.
You got a woman at home by any chance, Wally?
No one at home for me right now. My focus is all on making this podcast a success.
Well, all work and no play makes Wally a dull boy. You gotta relax sometime. What do you do in the evenings?
You're right about that, Mischke. In the evenings, I like to kick back and enjoy some quiet time. Maybe a good book or a little music to unwind. I've got my ways of recharging.
You have any hobbies?
One of my favorite hobbies is woodworking. There's something about the smell of the wood and the sound of the tools that's incredibly satisfying. When I'm not doing that, I've got another little hobby I like to indulge in. Putting on women's clothing. Especially when I'm home alone late at night.
Late at night, you wear women's clothing?
Yes. Something about the feel of it. Especially the undergarments.
I'm not going to be judgmental.
I appreciate that, Mischke. I think anyone can rock a skirt if they wear it with confidence, which is how I like it. I bet you'd look great in one too.
I don't see that happening, but I guess never say never.
Exactly. Who knows?
Well, thanks for spending this time with me. I'm going to get back to the podcast, if that's all right.
Here's to what's ahead. Good times, great stories, and of course, plenty of beers along the way. Let's roll.
This just in. Tokyo police and customs officials have made what is believed to be their biggest bust of a ketamine smuggler. Someone tried to bring ketamine through the Tokyo airport in 2 suitcases. Tokyo customs officials said they filed a criminal complaint against a French woman, accusing her of attempting to smuggle into Japan 88 pounds of ketamine in her luggage. The suspect was detained at the airport after arriving on a flight from Germany. The seized drugs had an estimated street value of $8.8 million. Ketamine, of course, a very powerful anesthetic. The drug is used recreationally, however, for its euphoric effects. I'm always at a loss with these types of crimes. And the reason is, well, it's because I don't see the plan. What was it that the Mickey Rourke character said in the movie Body Heat? Anytime you commit a crime, you have 50 ways of screwing up. If you can think of 25 of those ways, you're a genius. And pal, you ain't no genius. I always think about that with certain crimes, but this one in particular, I just always think, what was the plan? How were you intending in this day and age to get away with 88 pounds of drugs in 2 different suitcases at a major international airport? What was the plan? There must have been a plan. Because in 99% of instances that I'm aware of, you sit around, say, a dorm room, or you sit around an office at lunchtime, and you say out loud, "Hey guys, do you think I should go ahead with my plan of packing 88 pounds of drugs in my suitcases for an international flight?" And the people hearing what you just said will answer, "No, no, no, you should not do that. Get involved in herbal supplement pyramid schemes if you need extra money." But this particular French woman, hearing those around her say just that, must have thought they didn't know what they were talking about. She knew better, because she had thought long and hard about this. "I know," she said to herself, "I know what I'll do. These idiots don't have an idea or a clue, but I have a keen insight into a loophole here. Yeah, I'll hide the drugs in my suitcase under my clothing. I'll first pack my undergarments and then put the drugs on top of them, and then on top of that, I'll put my sweater and jacket. Who will ever notice? And if they decide to look through my luggage, and again, I don't think they will, but if they decide to look through my luggage, I'll just distract them by saying, look over there. I think I see a terrorist or something." And they'll say, "Where?" And I'll say, "He went that way." And then while they're pursuing this imaginary terrorist, I'll just slip into the plane. And on the off chance they come looking for me in the plane, I'll pretend I'm asleep. She thought the plan was so brilliant, she said to herself, "It's doubtful anybody else has come up with something that elaborate, that comprehensive." Anyway, somehow things didn't work out for our French woman. She inexplicably added a 4th element to her plan that was just a little overthought. At the airport, she got the idea to point at her suitcases in front of airport security personnel and say, "Whatever you do, fellas, don't look in those 2 suitcases right there." She had somehow thought it would be a reverse psychology kind of thing, that by pointing out the suitcases, she would telegraph that there must not be anything of concern in there, for why would a person purposely sound that suspicious unless there was nothing to be suspicious about at all? This woman, by the way, for a career, ran a company called Innovative Solutions, thinking outside the box, at work and at home. I think she must have just had the one client, her stepdad. I think he had used his considerable money to help fund her business as a way of getting her out of the house. I think he felt sorry for her. At 40 years of age, she should have been off on her own and married, he had figured. His only other option was putting her in a home. But she had told him time and time again she's perfectly fine, and if he would just leave her alone, she would be able to finish her side project, building that invisibility machine. Imagine this. You have an industrial workspace so dirty, if it were a person, it'd be ashamed of itself. Well, American Pressure has been helping people make those spaces clean as your conscience for decades. Pressure washing is their absolute laser-focused specialty at American Pressure. Not just selling the most effective, modern, state-of-the-art pressure washers, but just as importantly, driving out to your place of business to repair what you're already using, driving out to you with their service trucks, making you happy. They are never short on what they need. They stock thousands of parts for pressure washers. And frankly, over the decades, they have simply become the most knowledgeable people in the pressure washing business, period. East, west, north, south. They're in Robbinsdale, and they're at AmericanPressure.com. When memory begins to fade, it's important to have a place of comfort, a place of care, a place of dignity. At the Wellshire, they specialize in providing personalized memory care for your loved ones. They offer a safe, supportive environment where residents are treated like family. The Wellshire features 4 distinct households tailored to different stages of memory loss. It's a place where individuals can thrive because they're surrounded by caring professionals who understand their needs at each of these 4 stages. From personalized care plans to a home-like atmosphere, the Wellshire focuses on each individual's well-being, physically, mentally, emotionally. Tour the Wellshire of Bloomington and Medina. Have you been hearing about this new trend with couples not living together anymore? I mean, married couples. They're just not going to live together, and frankly, they might not even be in the same state. But word is they're still wildly in love. Here's the scoop. It might be unconventional, but there's plenty of couples out there these days who opt to live in different places. People are now referring to these couples by a trendy new term, apartners. Get it? They're apart, but they're partners? Apartners. People who do this also refer to themselves as LATs, or living apart together. Wait, what? Living apart together? Sharon Hyman, a longtime apartner herself, has a new book out called Apartners, Living Happily Ever Apart. Boy, this sounds romantic as hell. Celebrities like Gwyneth Paltrow and Sarah Paulson have talked about their living arrangements with their significant others, revealing they live separately from their partners, sometimes in entirely different parts of the country. Actress Cheryl Lee Ralph says she and her husband Vincent live in different states. She's in Los Angeles, he's way over in Philadelphia, and they're madly in love. Couldn't have a better relationship. On TikTok, more and more couples are coming forth and saying, yep, that's our living arrangement too. We're apartners. This couple here on a TikTok video say they're spending a year living apart. They're trying out being apartners, they say, not because they're having any problems. No problems at all. It's about growth, they say. Oh, you're growing, all right. You're growing apart. Don't fool yourself. I want to see these TikTok videos. I'd have to get TikTok, wouldn't I? Any other couples out there with this arrangement? Gretchen and Earl Tallymucker say they too have tried living apart, and it's worked so well that they've moved to opposite sides of the globe and have agreed to never see each other again the rest of their lives. Man, now there's a love to be admired. Says Gretchen, we just find our relationship is better served by this new arrangement. I've not spoken to Earl in decades, not even sure if he's still alive, but he's the love of my life, and I couldn't imagine a world without him. Meanwhile, Carla and Thurston Tumcrobbler also decided to give each other a little space. Carla shot Thurston in the head, and he now lives underground in a little box that has a hydroseal lid to keep the worms out. Carla refuses to call it a casket, however. She instead says it's her lover's dwelling. She feels fulfilled for the first time in her life and has gone back to wearing her wedding ring. Dick Swackenfluffer and his wife Tammy first decided to try sleeping in separate beds, and then separate houses, and now they've decided to simply camouflage themselves by secretly having gender reassignment surgery so the other person can't even figure out if it's them when spotted in the same restaurant or at the same sporting event. But they do talk on the phone each night using voice-altering software, and they tell each other they love one another before going to bed every night. It's a lovely, lovely new way to express fondness for one another. These are all examples of new relationships that are forming out there in our modern world. And who says what a relationship has to look like? People are getting more and more creative in that department. Wilma Flunkensteiner Roxon and her husband Brad decided to learn different languages and not tell each other what languages those were. Then they had the part of their brain that remembered English surgically removed. They now couldn't talk to each other if they wanted to, and they have never been happier. Brad even went a step further. He had the part of his brain removed that remembered Wilma even exists. Yet there she is in his bed each night, which of course freaks him out. There have been over 140 911 calls just this year alone. But they're making it work. They're making it work in their own creative way. I'm just going to say I think this story, which is a separate story, ties in to the couples living apart story. Dog owners rate their bond with their pets as more satisfying than their relationships with their partners, study finds. Uh-oh. The majority of you people out there are responding to surveys by saying your relationship or bond with your pet is more satisfying than your relationship with your partner. You do know the reason you are getting on so well with your pets is that they're kind of dumb, right? I mean, I love dogs as much as the next guy, but the reason the relationship is working so much better for you versus with your spouse or your partner is because your spouse or partner is a more complex being. Your pet is a simpleton. With your pet, we're in eat, sleep, pee, poop country with a little petting of the fur in between. Of course it's going to be better for you. It demands nothing of you. There's no real effort needed on your part. The dog is pretty much beholden to you. People are called dog owners for a reason. Owners. You don't get to own your spouse. You actually have to work at that relationship. I hate to say this, but you folks would probably prefer a spouse who'd been kicked in the head by a mule, too, wouldn't you? Bringing the spouse's intelligence down to that of a hog. I bet we could do a survey and find out people whose spouses have been kicked in the head by a mule are more satisfying spouses than those who have not been kicked in the head by a mule. How are things with your husband, Nancy? Never better, Carrie. He's had a traumatic brain injury, and he just does what I say now. It's great. Oh, you mean he's kind of stupid? Dumber than a box of rocks. Just how I like him. Reminds me a lot of our collie, actually. My best friend in the whole wide world, by the way. Well, that's great, Nancy. I'm dropping an anvil on my husband's head while he naps this weekend. Cheaper than therapy. It sure is, Carrie, and they're having a sale on anvils at Waterman's. They say the women will be lining up before dawn. The anvils are kind of heavy, of course, so they have helpers bringing them out to your car. They'll load them in the trunk for you. The guys helping you are kind of big, stupid lunks as well. They recruited them from a local hospital. Big, dumb guys. You'll love them. Might just marry one of them, in fact. Then you can return the anvil and save a little money. By the way, is Tracy still with her husband, Nick? And is he still in that coma? Oh, yeah, he's chained up in the backyard. She says they've never gotten along better. She cashes his disability checks and has the neighbor boy clean up after him, so she doesn't have too much to do. She's writing a book called Don't Live in Different Parts of the Country, Buy an Anvil. Well, that's about going to do it for this show. You know what I think about a lot since I started this particular podcast? I think about how much it reminds me of my radio days, where I also sat in a room very much like this. Small, intimate room, lights dimmed, the walls are padded. I always smile when I think about that. I work in a padded room. It's very similar to that feeling of being in a closet, talking to yourself. So it has that radio feel. I'm back on University Avenue, Hubbard Broadcasting, in a little studio. It's kind of like I never left. Anyway, I'll let you go. Pet your spouses for me and give them a treat tonight.